It's not just about hope and change and aspiration. It's going to be really about what is it going to take? What are you going to do to address wealth inequality, to address the unfairness of the democratic system, to address gerrymandering, to address the Supreme Court? I mean, all of these different things. You've got to have a plan to deal with all of these things. And we need big ideas and we need big changes.
Friends, welcome back to Trailblaze. I'm Jamal Simmons, and I'm here with my buddy Matt Butler. How you doing, Matt?
Hello, Jamal. I am fantastic. How are you?
Good. A lot going on this week. We've been paying attention to all kinds of big things in the news. President Trump has struck a deal with Iran, it seems, with some sort of memorandum of understanding that sounds an awful lot like the same deal that Barack Obama had in 2015.
Yeah, but not quite as good.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Except Iran's stronger than they were before, and we've sort of proven the case that we can't pull off what we say we are going to pull off, like we did used to. So speaking of Barack Obama, we also saw this week that they opened the Obama Presidential Center, which I have learned is not actually a library, but is a center because it doesn't have any books. It doesn't have nothing.
No papers, just PDFs, just online PDFs, saved PDFs.
Exactly. That's the joke of the whole thing, which is that it doesn't actually have any books or records. They said everything's online. So why do they need to have all that stuff in the library?
So
just look it up.
So is it a data center? Is that what it is? Is it the Obama data center? Is that basically what we've got in Chicago?
Yeah, that would be super popular.
The ceremony looked great. Ceremony looked fantastic today, and a lot of people watching. I got a lot of texts and stuff like that for people. A couple of people who were there, and just it seemed like a fantastic event.
It did seem like it was a lot of fun. People looked like they were having a great time. My favorite part was Stevie Wonder singing "Signed, Sealed, and Delivered," and then in the audience, people were doing the electric slide, which I just thought was like.
That's pretty great. That is pretty great. It takes me back to like a long time ago when I was working on the presidential inaugural gala in 1996 into 1997. So for Clinton's second inauguration, Stevie Wonder was one of the marquee acts for that. And in the rehearsal, there had been a chorus that had been on like an act or two before. Anyway, Stevie had the idea to have that chorus come back in during his number, fill the aisles, and sing along with his song. And it was like in rehearsal the day before the event, and he just came up with it on the fly. I mean, it was amazing to watch. And when we actually did it for the like full on thing, it worked so well. So, musical genius, and it's unbelievable that was 30 years ago, and he's still just nailing it.
Yeah, and you know what the most gangster part of that whole story is? Stevie Wonder knew that they knew his song.
Yes, exactly. Yes, for sure. Right. Absolutely.
Like, I can throw a choir at this song with no notice.
None.
Give them
he just
direction.
Hey, is that chorus still here? I think it would be good. Can we get them back in here to sing with me? And of course, I mean, they went there. It was amazing. So.
That's perfect. That is absolutely perfect. The part that I thought was the most amazing about the presidential center. Oh, so it's a center, not a library. It's got basketball courts and it's got event spaces and all sorts of places for people to be able to use things more so than just a library. But the part that was the most amazing to me was Michelle Obama speaking. There were two parts: Michelle Obama speaking and her really refuting so much of the ethics and the low values orientation of the moment in Washington with President Trump without ever saying his name, but just sort of talking about calling us to our higher ideals and our higher purposes and what we can be and how we look out for each other day to day in our communities. And we don't have to be mean, we can be kind, all those sorts of things. I just thought it was a perfect refutation of what we saw the other night at the UFC fight.
It really was, and it shows us the kind of the difference between the presidency of Barack Obama and the two presidencies of Donald Trump. Now, I will say I did like that Michelle Obama got in there, that Barack Obama did win a Nobel Peace Prize. And so, even though she's never saying his name, I mean, like, she's kind of like putting the knife in there a little bit too, which is
Totally.
which is absolutely great. And she also
You know
talked
who
about
else
how
loved that? Hillary Clinton was laughing
Bill
her
and
butt
Hillary
off.
Clinton loved it. Like, they were laughing about that in the background. Yeah, that was pretty good. She also talked about how he was completely unflappable and how he did not lose his temper and he was under so much pressure. And that is the thing about Barack Obama. And like, from the very beginning, when we, first he started running for Senate and came to the kind of national fore in 2004, he was always just the coolest guy and, always had his wits together. And I didn't agree with absolutely positively everything he did as president, but it was such a difference from the Trump presidency. And it was, you could see, like, when she was speaking, there were so many people who were welling up in the audience, and there was, it didn't seem like there was a dry eye at that entire event. So, and my God, I would imagine that 75% of Americans would take Barack Obama to be the president of the United States again tomorrow, if you gave them the option.
Oh, in a heartbeat. And especially if you get Michelle Obama, who is the most popular first lady of all the first ladies these days. And maybe
is that really
even
true?
Yeah, it's true. She may even be like
That's
the most
awesome.
popular woman in America, other than like Oprah Winfrey, who might be like number 2. But she is for sure the most popular first lady alive. So that brings me to the second part, which is my most favorite part, is Bono singing. And he basically like closed his song with this ode to Michelle Obama. Like, I can't remember how the song, like, I know the song in my head, but I'm not going to try and sing it right now. But like, you're so beautiful, like, you're beautiful. And he was just like, you're beautiful, Michelle, you're beautiful. Like, the song is about like, another woman, and it's about maybe the country, and it's about, and he was like, Michelle, you're beautiful. Michelle, you're beautiful. He must have said it like 15 times, talked about how beautiful she was, which I think was a direct shot back at that UFC fighter on the other night on the lawn in the White House. Like, get your hands off of Michelle Obama. She's ours. She's beautiful. She's amazing. Fuck you.
Absolutely. And I think, and I'm sure we'll be guilty of it on this show as well, is not giving enough credit to the spouses and partners of the people who are running for president or actually then win the presidency, and how hard those jobs are, how much criticism they're under, how much stress, pressure, and, fire that they take. And she has always had a ton of grace, even though she has gotten a lot of it since 2008 when she first came on the scene as the first lady.
Including, remember that New York cover of her dressed like a Black Panther or something with a bandolier of bullets and a machine gun? Like, come on, guys. And this is supposed to be the liberal publication? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
So, and then obviously Barack Obama got up and spoke, and he kind of called us again to the higher angels of our nature, and told people basically to get to work. We got some rebuilding to do. So I thought that was good. Which kind of brings us to our question of the day, right? Which is, are we done with the hopey changey stuff, right? Is America looking for more aspirational politics, or are we really settling into the grittier, slug match of the Trump presidency? I don't know. What do you think?
I don't think the days of hope and change are over. I think people are still looking for that. It's just that it's not enough anymore. We need to look for more. I mean, look, we started out talking about this show. This show is about hope. It is about the day that Donald Trump is no longer president and who's going to take over after him. So, when Barack Obama came into the White House, we had, the 2008 financial crisis. Things were not great, but they're not anywhere near as bad as they are right now. And we did not see the weakness in the fundamental democratic principles that sort of undergird the entire system that Trump has sort of laid bare. So we do need hope. We're going to need a lot of change. We need aspiration for things being better for working people, but we are also going to need some accountability for the people who have broken laws under this administration, the corruption that has occurred, and we also need to do a lot of work to reinforce our democratic system to make sure that a lot of these, the breaking of these norms that the Trump has been able to do, it's not possible to do again. We really need to undergird a lot of these changes, and we need to support the entire democratic system.
We do. contrasting the event at the Obama Presidential Center with the UFC fight on Sunday, they had sold. You know how when you walk up the stairs at a stadium, you can see ads on the inside of the stairs,
Yeah.
and they'd sold those ads to Polymarket. Uh, and so there's a big Poly Market ad going up the stands at the White House. So it's gambling, right? Like it's basically gambling advertising at the White
Yeah.
House. And one of Trump's allies or friends or supporters or whatever was quoted in the newspaper in the Times the other day saying, Vegas has come to the White House. Vegas has come to DC. And it's absolutely right. But like, that's not a good thing, right? Like,
No.
UFC fights and gambling and seediness and all the stuff in Vegas, which is fine for a weekend with your bros, but it's not necessarily what you want kind of in the national leadership. So anyway, I saw that coupled with like the crypto advertising going on in the corners. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's more the graft of this administration. And then, of course, alongside that, you also had the Eric Trump tweets or direct messages to Daniel Cormier, the former UFC champion, like, hey, which of these fights, who's injured? What can I get some inside information? I'd really like to make some bets on this, which then they said are fabricated. It's like, bullshit. They're not fabricated. You actually
It's
did it. You wanted some inside information. Like, it's just the corruption does not end with these guys. It's absolutely disgusting.
It doesn't. And, there was a story also last week. This was kind of my stat of the week, which I think when we're thinking about not just the Trump corruption, but what does it mean for the rest of us and going forward, the Trump family has made $2.3 billion off of its crypto investments and crypto affiliations. And it's hard to really even call them investments because basically they're just getting like licensing fees off of the crypto. Like, so even though the coins have lost value, the Trump family has made money because every time somebody purchases or trades a coin, they make money. So they're making money off of crypto, $2.3 billion. That is more money than every African American entrepreneur in this country has been able to raise through venture capital
Oh,
combined.
wow.
There's been
Wow.
according to Crunchbase, about $970 million in venture capital raise for African American entrepreneurs in 2025. 2.3 billion dollars in crypto alone just for the Trump family.
Yeah,
That's the
that's absolutely
disparity.
insane.
That's the disparity that's happening right now in our country.
Yeah,
It's
and
pretty
then so
crazy.
this is going to be the next person who comes in. They've got to address all of these things, and so yeah, it's not just about hope and change and aspiration. It's going to be really about what is it going to take. What are you going to do to address wealth inequality, to address the unfairness of the democratic system, to address gerrymandering, to address the Supreme Court. I mean, all of these different things. You've got to have a plan to deal with all of these things, and we need big ideas and we need big changes.
So, one place where big ideas seem to be coming at a pretty rapid clip, certainly forceful personalities, is out of the DSA wing of the Democratic Party, Democratic
Yep.
Socialists of America. Washington, D.C. this week got its first DSA mayor who won the Janice Lewis George, who won the mayor's contest in Washington, D.C., at least the Democratic primary, which is basically the
Sure.
election versus the
Basically the election.
Republicans. Nothing. So she won. That puts Washington, D.C., New York City, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
the two sort of big capitals on the East Coast. Karen Bass has got a pretty severe contest taking place in Los
Yep.
Angeles against kind of a more progressive candidate. And then I don't remember if the mayor of Chicago, if he's just endorsed by DSA or if he actually is a DSA member, Brandon. But I think he's if he's not endorsed, he's certainly aligned.
Yeah, I think that's right, but I do not think I don't think he's endorsed by or he's not a member of the Democratic Socialists of America. I don't believe.
Yeah. So you got, those are,
Major
like
cities though. Major
major
cities.
cities. Yeah. And we talked about last week the ideological affiliation of Democrats from 25% people calling themselves progressive or very liberal to now over 60% on the Democratic Party. there's going to be real energy behind whoever that next progressive candidate is who's running in 2028, which is kind of what we talk about here.
I think that's right. And it's also like now that you see it happen in DC, after Mamdani won the primary and then won the general election, it was like, well, that's New York. It can't happen other places. Like Washington, DC is different than New York City. And so now that it's happened here, and Los Angeles is very different from both New York and from Washington, DC. So we'll have to see what happens there as well. But this is, there is a movement here that's happening. And, we've talked a lot about the energy in the Democratic Party and on the left is on this in the far left side of things. It is not in the centrist and not in the middle anymore. And so that somebody is going to have to capture that energy. And that's the person who I think is going to have the advantage in the primary election in the race to be the Democratic nominee for president.
Yeah, that's going to be true, especially depending on how these things shake out. Remember last time we had an open contest in 2020, you kind of had, you had Bernie Sanders and you had Elizabeth Warren running, and they were in some ways splitting up that
Yep.
wing of the vote. But obviously Sanders was kind of the big kahuna there, and Warren wasn't able to. She was sort of considered to be the more mainstream progressive between the two of them. So it will be interesting to see whether or not there's one person like an AOC who gets into the race who's just such a big fish, right? Who's just such
Yep.
a big personality that even if somebody else like Ro Khanna maybe gets in, they just can't really take that much of the vote away from her for it to matter. She ends up being a finalist. I mean, we don't know. One of those candidates might be.
Right. I mean, it looks like if AOC wants to do this, I mean, she is going to be one of the top 2 or 3 candidates for this race, and she's probably going to be in it all the way to the end. I think Ro Khanna won't have a path if AOC is in. If AOC decides not to do it, Ro Khanna then obviously has a way to go. And then the question is, even if AOC is in the race, can the centrist sort of more moderate candidates, can they coalesce the way that they did in 2020 to be able to overtake her? And I'm actually not sure that they're going to be able to pull that move this time in 2028.
Yeah, because you do have in some ways, he's a stronger politician than Bernie, right? I mean, Bernie's appeal was that he was, I mean, just a performance and performance art, not
Yeah,
necessarily maybe a policy.
maybe.
I mean, his appeal was that he was kind of crotchety, and that was part of his whole shtick was like, you could tell he didn't play the game because he didn't play the game with like his hair, right? Like the guy who wouldn't
Yeah.
even smooth down the, straggly strands. And so that was part of his appeal. But with AOC, she's polished. She's obviously attractive. She makes compelling speeches. She's got like energy on the stump. She's got a warm face. She smiles and like she brings people in a way that Bernie never really smiled. He kind of gave you the furrowed
Just
brow.
gruff. Yeah.
Is gruff. So it's funny. Just lastly, I was at CNN in the green room the other night, and the makeup artists were talking about like when Bernie came in and how like he wouldn't let you do his hair when he was in there, or whatever, because he liked it. But like I remember being in the green room when Bernie Sanders was in the green room, and like other members or senators would be in there, other people, and Sanders would pull out his briefing book and open it up and stick his nose like in the page of the book, basically like, don't talk to me. He's the one guy in the green room not interested in talking to anybody else about anything. Like, but he doesn't here to play the game. He sees
Right.
himself as an outsider and kind of lives a life. He's true to it.
Yeah, and you know what? He was completely and totally authentic, and AOC seems to be completely and totally authentic, but in a different way, right? We've seen her entire career come up. Bernie was toiling away in Vermont with these same kind of principles for a long time, and people weren't paying a ton of attention to him. I mean, he was obviously a member of Congress, then he became a senator, but it wasn't until the last 10 years, 2016, that he really came on the scene. We've seen every moment of AOC's career because she was in the national spotlight from the moment that she won that New York primary and then was able to be elected to Congress. And now, is a major force, whether she's going to be running for Senate or running for president. And she's a huge force. So she's got a different type of authenticity, and she doesn't seem like she has pulled away from any of her positions that she started running on 10 years ago.
No, she seems pretty dug in. So that brings us to the rest of the field. Anybody else out there doing anything that you're paying attention to this week?
I mean, it's been pretty. There's been a lot going on. Like, we are definitely into the state of the race where something's going to be happening every week, and people are going to be making a little bit of news. I thought Raphael Warnock was pretty interesting this week. He seems like he is doing a lot of stuff that a person who wants to run for president would be. Let me just go down the list. He did release a book this week, which we know is one of the signs of running for president. He did New York Times. He did the interview. He's been on Tim Miller's show. He was on The Daily Show, NPR, CBS, Bloomberg, and keynoting the Nevada Democratic Convention. So, I mean, these are not the things that somebody who's just on a book tour does. I mean, some of them are, but like, why go to the Nevada Democratic Convention? It's not like a hotbed of book sales. But Nevada probably going to be one of the early states. So I think that's very interesting. The other interesting thing I saw, and he is not able to run for president right now because he is in the midst of a pretty competitive Senate race, but Reverend Warnock's co-senator or colleague in the Senate, John Ossoff, has been making speeches. I don't know about you, but I get fed ads online to give money to John Ossoff all the time. So he is investing heavily in building up a small dollar donor base with the Senate race. I will note that in Calshi, he is up to 12% as the person most likely to be the second person most likely to be the Democratic nominee. He was at 5 or 6 when we started doing this podcast 3 or 4 months ago. So that is a big jump up. So people are really starting to notice Ossoff and starting to invest money behind him. Warnock is less than 1%, but it does seem like he's just kind of starting his race, and he's got a lot more freedom to do stuff because he doesn't have a race right now. The other person that I've that I noticed was Pete Buttigieg, my preferred DNC chairman, but he did the Rainbow Push Coalition convention, and I think this is the first Rainbow Coalition convention since the passing of Reverend Jackson. But he was on there, and he was talking a lot about big ideas to sort of reinforce the democracy of this country, talking about a constitutional amendment to get money out of politics, to get rid of Citizens United, to make sure that we know that corporations are not people, that money is not speech. He's talking about increasing the Supreme Court from 9 justices to 13, getting rid of gerrymandering, getting rid of the Electoral College, DC statehood. Now, I will say, Pete Buttigieg in the Medicare for all who want it, he didn't say that I'm running on all of these things. He was sort of saying, well, we could do this and we could do that and we could do this. So I really want him to commit to a lot of these ideas and give us like specifics for why he wants to. But I am a sucker for a plan, and if this guy's got a plan to really help reinforce democracy, I think that goes a long way for saying I am serious about this, and I am one of the top contenders to be the next president of the United States. I thought he was pretty impressive. He's so good. He's such a good communicator.
I saw the Supreme Court justice plan, part of the plan first. That was the first news headline that I saw. And, people have been talking about this for a while. And I initially was kind of like, oh, it's kind of pie in the sky. Like, we've got our justices. Let's figure it out. Like, why are we changing the rules in the middle of the game? But now I realize, like, they're changing the rules all the time.
All the time.
We're the only ones, me and my 5 friends are the only ones interested in playing by the rules, while these guys are playing, changing them all the time, including picking Supreme Court justices. So I am all about maybe like let's expand the court. I don't know if 5 is the right number, or 3 is the right number, or 7 is the right number. I don't know what the right number is.
Yeah.
To go from 9 to 13 or 9 to 15 or 9 to 11. I don't know what it is. But I think we could change the court. And it's one of these ideas where you start saying it now, and 7 years from now, 6 years from now, it's a totally mainstream idea. It's passing, and we're making it, it's making it through the process.
Yeah, and I think he also Buttigieg makes that point too. It's like some of these things are going to take 20 years, so let's start tomorrow, or let's start yesterday. And so I think that is a real that's a real thing. Like, if we're going to change the Constitution to outlaw corporate spending in elections, then and get money out of politics, we need to start doing that. I will say, be a great thing for the chairman of the DNC to be like starting to work on the constitutional amendment and whipping votes and figuring out who the sponsors are and going and looking at the legislatures and where we need to change things. I mean, that would be a great thing for a DNC chairman to be all about. Anyway, that's I'll get off the chairman thing, but I still think he'd be great. He'd be great. But we do need somebody running that constitutional amendment.
One thing you got to say about Matt Butler, he's on message.
I love it. I love the idea. He's such a great communicator. He'd be great. He'd be like the question is what is the best spot for him? We need A players all across the board, and we really need somebody in that chair who's a great communicator. Right. So anyway,
so
if he wants to run for president, I'm supportive as well. So let's see how it plays out.
So let's circle back for a second to the Georgians. So Raphael Warnock, Reverend Warnock, he's the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, which is where Martin Luther King was pastor.
It's a pretty good legacy.
It's a pretty good legacy. He still does church every Sunday. I know he still goes to the pulpit. He says he can't do a lot of the other things he used to do when he was pastor. He doesn't marry as many people or show up at, things. But he tries to preach, I think, every Sunday. And it's one model of kind of the new of a democratic voice, like a more faith or value-centered voice, obviously rooted in the African-American community. He's been in some tough fights. Raphael Warnock has won more Senate races, I think, than anybody else in the last 5 years because he had to go through the runoffs and specials.
Yeah, and the runoffs.
So he's pretty battle tested. So I think, like you said, he's doing the Stations of the Cross. To book or not to book, he's got the book. So that's like one more. That's one more box off the checklist of future candidates.
Yeah.
So I like the idea. I think he should be in the race. We need to have like that kind of a voice, I think, in the race. And then the other one, obviously, is John Ossoff, the senator who's got a race to win for Senate. He's got a bunch of money, like a buttload of money. Like it's like he's got, I don't know the number. I don't want to count it, but I can't remember. Someone said it's like tens of millions of dollars that he's got sitting in the bank, which I think is also making people pay a lot of attention to him.
Yeah.
So, people like him. People like him. I'm more of a wait and see on him. I want to see more. But I think if he wins the re-election and he really wants to do it, he probably he gets a berth,
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, we know that he can give a great speech. We know that he has an advanced team that does an incredible job of setting up the shot and the visuals. So like when he is giving a speech, like all the video that comes out of that is awesome. I mean, it looks like Barack Obama, and it looks like the team that did Barack Obama's visuals is doing it. And he sounds like Barack Obama. I mean, it's got that kind of feel to it, which is a great thing, but it's only one part of things. Like, I don't think he's sat down to do a bunch of 2-hour podcast interviews. I don't really follow his social media, so I haven't noticed that yet. So we'll have to see how that goes. And he's got to win this race. So he does have a lot of money, but he's going to have to spend a good portion of that to make sure he gets reelected to the Senate.
So I was watching the Ezra Klein to do a little, I guess I'll promote someone else's podcast here. I was watching the Ezra Klein interview of Chris Hayes the other day. On his podcast. And they were talking about Ossoff. And one of the things he said is that Ossoff is not doing a lot of podcasts. He's actually not playing like a volume game. He's not doing a lot of things. He's just doing a few things really well. And so he's really figured out his lane and how to use social media and digital media, I should say. And so he's not really trying to overdo it yet. But we'll see as we get closer to election day. You time these things out. You don't want to do everything in the beginning. You kind of time it out and see.
Yeah, and he is like I said, I've been served a lot of ads trying to get me to give money to him. So that is, all of that is donor prospecting to try to build up a big small dollar fundraising list, which you could then, unleash for the presidential primary. So I live in Maryland. I'm like nowhere near the Georgia, but so he's trying to get a national list together and is investing probably pretty heavily in that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we got a lot of news and some movement. I think people watching 2028, let's see the role of hope and change versus, fight and, and slug. We're watching AOC and the progressive wing of the party and seeing what they're doing. We got Pete Buttigieg, putting out some pretty bold policy proposals, and Raphael Warnock, getting into the book game. So we got
and I will, and the one thing I will note is that our Cauchy leader, Gavin Newsom, actually had some good news. I mean, it was, bad news from an investigative standpoint, but he actually went from 23 to 24 on Cauchy, and that is the first time that he has ticked up since November. So, having the Trump administration coming after him has helped do some good for him. He's responded to it really well, and he doesn't miss his moments generally. So I think we don't want to forget about Gavin Newsom. He's still in this.
So I'll ask you the question: do you think Gavin Newsom being investigated by the Justice Department, the Trump Justice Department, is a net plus or net negative?
Oh, it's definitely a net plus for him. I mean, it's going to be a pain in the ass, and it's going to be depositions, it's going to be legal fees, and discovery and all that kind of stuff, which is not going to be great for him. But you want the Trump administration coming after you, because if you're an enemy of Trump, then you're going to be pretty much a hero of most of the left. We saw it work for Mark Kelly when they came after him for encouraging soldiers to disobey illegal orders. He really started to raise a ton of money. He got his profile went way up. I think the same thing's going to happen for Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Gavin Newsom being the opponent of Trump will be more helpful. I actually think, even if, God forbid for them, because I know it's a pain in the butt, they've indict him for something, which doesn't mean they actually find something. It just means that they indict him, right? Or indict his wife, which is actually even worse politically for the Trump administration, I think, to indict his wife. That would be, I think, devastating for them. But if they indict them for something, that's still, Trump has showed us that there is still a path and a possibility on how to use that as a kind of marketing and political fodder that is helpful to someone who wants to run for president. So the question we have is, were these things Trump specific, or has the structure of the game changed in a way that everybody will have kind of a lower bar to jump when it comes to the investigative maneuvers?
Yeah, I don't know, but I do think that it's generally, I think of these things as that Trump is sort of a special case in most of them. But when Trump is on the other side of this balance, then maybe you get the advantage. So it wouldn't work for somebody normally to be indicted, but it will work for Gavin Newsom because it's Trump that's sitting on the other side of that. And so the backlash and the bad reaction to Trump and Trump being after somebody could work to his benefit, I think.
Yeah. Okay. All right. A lot to talk about this week. Look forward to talking to you next week, Matt.
Yep. Talk to you on Tuesday. Bye.